So this couple, they live in the jungle right near the beach. And one day, they see a strange man crawling through the sand. And he's naked and he can barely stand and he's clutching a knife and he's shouting something incoherently in a language they don't understand. So the guy's name is Salvador, and he works as a deep-sea fisherman, catching tuna and sharks and stuff off the coast of Mexico. It's a dangerous job, but he's into it. And one day, he decides to go on a 2-day fishing trip. And his normal fishing partner can't make it, and he needs someone to go with. So this young, inexperienced guy volunteers. This guy, Pinata. So Salvador and Pinata, they get in the boat and they head out to the Pacific. And for about 2 days, they fish. And they catch about 1,100 pounds. Enough fish to sell back home for about a week's worth of money. And so everything is going great. Until they're finally done fishing and they turn their boat around to go back home. And then, out of nowhere, kabam! A massive storm hits and the boat starts to fill up with water. And Pinata panics and he's using a bucket to get the water out of the boat as Salvador tries to steer through the massive waves. And finally, luckily, after a while, the storm starts to die down. And Salvador, he can see land. They're about 2 hours away from the shore. And that is when, boom, the boat's engine starts sputtering and it dies. So Salvador pulls out his two-way radio and he calls his boss and he's like, "Help, my engine is dead." And the boss asks for his location, but their GPS has stopped working. And then, to make it worse, the storm starts building up again. And it's getting stronger and stronger and it's tossing the boat around. Sometimes the waves are raising them up 3 stories high before the boat drops. And Salvador realizes that the 1,100 pounds of fish they caught is making the boat unstable. So they just dump it all out. And they just keep throwing anything not useful overboard to lighten the load. Like extra ice and extra fuel. And then the two-way radio dies. And by this point, Salvador and Pinata have been bailing water out of the boat for hours. And the engine still won't start. And Salvador gets frustrated and he's pissed off and he just loses it. He picks up the fish-killing club and he just smashes the boat's engine. And he grabs the dead GPS and the dead two-way radio and he just chucks them into the water. Then, as night comes and the temperature drops, the two men, they have to huddle under an upside-down cooler for warmth and shelter. Meanwhile, back on land, a search party is formed to go out and look for the two. But unfortunately, the storm is still very active and visibility is still very low. And after about 2 days of no results, the search is called off. And 5 more days go by before the storm finally stops. And when it does, Salvador and Pinata, they finally get their bearings and they look around and they realize they have no idea where they are. And to make it worse, they're starving and there's nothing to eat on board and there's nothing to drink on board. So with Salvador's equipment gone, he's got to get creative. So he spends a bit of time and he figures out how to catch things in the ocean using only his bare hands. Fish and turtles and jellyfish, and they start eating that raw because that's all they have. And to drink, turtle blood and their own urine because again, that's all they have. And then one day they get lucky and a seabird lands on the boat. So Salvador, he quickly grabs it and he unalives it. And then they get to survive eating that for a few weeks. And then it finally rains, so they get to collect rainwater and they start drinking that. And so for 2 months, they live like this, eating raw animals and catching rainwater when they can. But as time stretches on, something comes over Pinata. He's not acting the same anymore, and he starts to get depressed. And as he's losing all hope, he slowly starts to refuse any food. He just simply can't bring himself to eat any more raw animals. And eventually, he just stops eating entirely, and he grows really sick. And Salvador and Pinata, they start to feel like he isn't gonna make it. So they make a pact. If Salvador makes it out alive, he'll contact Pinata's mother and deliver her a message that's only meant for her. I don't know exactly what that message is because, again, it's only meant for her. So Salvador, he agrees to this. And then, one rainy morning, after they've been lost at sea for over 4 months, Pinata, he finally passes away from starvation. And Salvador, he is devastated. That was the only person around. I mean, they had grown really close during this whole traumatic experience. And Salvador, he's immediately so lonely that he keeps holding conversations with Pinata's body, even after he's dead. And after 6 days of this, he realizes it's not mentally healthy to keep talking to a corpse, pretending it's alive. So he pushes Pinata's body back into the ocean, and he goes on living his life on that boat, lost at sea. And 10 more months go by. And Salvador is still out there, living day to day, catching fish with his bare hands and drinking rainwater and having conversations with birds. But then, one day, Salvador starts to see a different kind of bird. Not the seabirds he's used to seeing. No, these are land birds. And through the distance, he can suddenly see kind of a mountaintop. And that mountaintop ends up being attached to an island. Maybe there is hope. Maybe he can deliver that message to Pinata's mother like he asked him to. Now, this island is about an hour away, and Salvador directs his boat toward it. And when he's close enough, he dives into the ocean and he swims for the shore. And then he gets there, and he's too weak to walk. And he's naked, and he had brought a knife with him just in case. And he slowly crawls up the beach into the jungle, and that's where he spots a house. And the owners of that house, a couple, they see him crawling around naked with a knife, shouting in Spanish. And they're like, who the f*** is this guy? But that couple does end up helping him get to the hospital. So, what is this island Salvador finally landed on? Well, after being lost at sea for 438 days, Salvador had drifted over 6,000 miles, all the way from Costa Azul, Mexico, to Ibon in the Marshall Islands. About a month later, after he's rescued, he finally gets a chance to travel to El Fortín in Mexico. There, he visits Pinata's mother, and he's able to deliver Pinata's final message to her. Then he gets a book deal because his story is just incredible. And afterwards, Pinata's family sues him for $1 million, wanting half the proceeds from any of his book sales. So that's fun. I don't know if the lawsuit actually went through, but that's the last reporting anyone did on any of them. So good luck with all that. So this politician ruins his career by smashing with a hooker, but then he makes the most insane comeback I've ever seen. Now, his name is Gerald, and Gerald wants nothing more than to make an impact on this world. So, he gets into politics. And at 26 years old, he runs for Congress. But unfortunately, he loses that election. Oh, but Gerald's not going to give up yet. He's determined to be a political success. So a year later, he tries again, and he runs for city council. And this time, he wins. He finally gets his foot in the door. And once he's elected, everyone just loves Gerald because he works really hard to be a man of the people. Like, he goes out and he works a day with a garbage collection crew, and he spends a night with prisoners in jail. He's trying to get everyone's perspective to take back with him to city council. He's that kind of guy, so he's really popular. But then, Gerald screws it all up when one day he decides to visit a health club. Here's the thing about this particular health club. This health club is actually known as a place where guys go to meet hookers. So while Gerald's there visiting this place, he pays for intercourse. Twice. And when he does, for some dumb reason, both times he pays with a personal check. And of course, on those checks, he had signed his actual name. And eventually, predictably, the health club gets busted by police for running a prostitution ring. And during that investigation, of course, they find the checks with Gerald's name right on them. And poor Gerald, he's embarrassed and he's ashamed, and then boom, he's forced to step down from the city council position he worked so hard for.
I believe it in the best interest of this community that I resign.
Now, lucky for him, he doesn't face any charges, but it does seem like that's the end of his political career, and he's never going to make an impact on this world. Until Gerald is not ready to give up yet. He set out to make an impact on this world, and damn it, that's what he's gonna do. So a few years later, despite his scandal, he says, fuck it, I want to get back into politics. And he runs for city council again. And to everyone's surprise, boom, he gets elected again. Not only that, he wins by a landslide. And shortly after that, he gets chosen by the city council to be the mayor of Cincinnati. Oh, but he's not done yet. 4 years later, he runs for governor of Ohio. And he still has these skeletons in his closet from the whole prostitution scandal, but he still runs a pretty good campaign where he owns up to his past mistakes.
Some 9 years ago, I spent time with a woman I shouldn't have, and I paid her with a check. I wish I hadn't done that.
But when all is said and done, unfortunately, Ohio doesn't seem to be ready for a guy like Gerald, 'cause he loses that election. So now, he doesn't know what he's gonna do. He's bummed out. His political career is pretty much over. How in the hell is he gonna make an impact on the world now? So while he's trying to figure things out, Gerald gets a job as a local news anchor and political commentator. And it turns out, he's actually pretty good at that. He's good on TV. In fact, he's so good on TV, the network ends up giving him his own TV show called The Jerry Springer Show. Now, the show is actually kind of a hard-hitting news show. It's a place for Jerry to discuss important issues like homelessness and the AIDS crisis, stuff like that. But then, as time goes on, the news angle starts to fade away in favor of drama from the guests. And that is when the episodes start getting crazier.
He's my man. You need to stay the away from him. He doesn't love you. You're nothing but a psycho.
And crazier.
My sister is dating my father.
And crazier.
I did this for you. I feel really stupid.
And I still love that you do that for me.
I'm an alligator.
And the network is like freaking out. They're like, yes, we want more of that crazy, please. So the Jerry Springer Show evolves into this massive hit, and it becomes what hundreds of millions of people know it and love it to be. And it runs for 27 successful seasons, and Gerald becomes an icon of TV talk shows. So I guess you could say he made an impact on the world.